Welcome to our conversation regarding the need to communicate non-verbally in the workplace. Again, if you're trying to establish credibility, it's very, very important that you project a presence that indicates to the organization that you're somebody that people need to be paying attention to. You're doing this not just for ego, you're doing it to attract fellowship so that you have people that will get in line with you to help you accomplish your mission. To project a presence in the organization that is positive, that's going to attract people, that's going to attract people to your purpose, to your mission, you have to be one that they see as confident, but they don't want arrogance. They want somebody that they can trust, and they want somebody that can exude power, but they do so with genuine humility. So let's take a look at how we go about doing that. The first is to recognize that human beings, probably since the cave-dwelling days, have built into our DNA the need to establish status, hierarchy, and a pecking order within the organization. To lead, we need to be recognized as somebody that has the status, that has the power to accomplish the mission of the organization. So we may look at political correctness, we may look at a lot of other things where we're trying to be egalitarian. The reality is that human beings, particularly when we're placed in a structure like an organization, are looking for a status or a hierarchy, and our job, if we're choosing to lead, to be responsible in that organization, is to have a high enough status so that we can accomplish our purpose. So how do we physically project this presence? One is how we appear, how we physically appear, and the second is the language that we use when we're communicating within the organization. We need to be aware that it isn't just the words that we're using, it is also our posture. And we want to be able to project a presence that says to people, this is somebody I can trust. This is somebody that I can respect. Amy Cuddy back at Harvard has been doing a tremendous amount of work in this whole idea of projection of presence, and is somebody that I would encourage you to take a look at her work, to read her book, or at a minimum, to pay attention to her TED Talk. She projects in her life story how she transitioned from somebody that did not have a presence, that was unable to establish a place in the hierarchy of organization that would allow her to do the things that she's doing. And she talks about the need to be physically aware of the image that you're projecting into the organization. And she talks a lot about providing an image that says, I am confident, trust me, I know what I'm doing, I don't have all the answers, but I'm also somebody that's comfortable in the situation. Particularly today, it's intriguing to me that I'm going into organizations and visiting with their executives and their managers, and when the doors are closed, literally the CEOs and boards tell me that they honestly don't know what the future is going to look like. That they're operating in a space of the unknown, but they are comfortable in that situation. And I use the term coming out of those conversations, what we need to do is develop the ability to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And if you can project that to the people that you're asking to follow you, the fear goes away, and there's sort of this subtle confidence that no matter how challenging things are, we will figure it out. The other piece that you want to take a look at is projecting passion and enthusiasm. When I talk to my undergraduate students, they're very concerned. They're going out into the marketplace. They don't have a history. They maybe worked in some casual jobs going through university, but they aren't managerial, they're not supervisorial, and they're going into interview and they're looking around the room at other candidates that maybe have 10 or 15 more years of experience on them, and they say, how do we compete? My recommendation is what you're bringing to the table is unbridled passion and enthusiasm for the job. And organizations truly are looking to have that mix, that dynamic in their workforce, where part of the organization is sort of like me. We've been rode hard and put away wet a lot of times, like an old war horse. And then there's a young, passionate people that trigger our energy, revitalize us, and help us move towards the future. So don't think you don't have anything to offer. Just come into the interviews for a promotion or to be hired with passion and unbridled enthusiasm for the purpose of the organization. And develop a power posture. I love Amy Cuddy's video because she goes through a number of power postures. She likes best her Wonder Woman look. So when you come into a room, you don't slink into the room, you walk into the room and all of a sudden you're Superman or Wonder Woman. And she suggests that you even go out in the hallway before you walk in and practice your pose before you start the conversation. And what we want to do is avoid low power poses. If you take a look at these 5 images and you're thinking about yourself as an employee of this manager, and they come into the meeting and they strike one of these poses, you're immediately deflated. You're all of a sudden very uncertain about what the future holds, and you're not trusting them with your future, and you're very, very concerned that they're going to be able to deliver on what the organization needs. So again, go in the closet, practice your pose, and when you come into a meeting, project that pose of one that people will follow. We also have to learn how to communicate like a leader. So it's not enough just to be able to stand there like Superman or Wonder Woman. You have to be able to verbalize your view of the future. And you have to do that if you want people to follow you by casting a very clear vision of the future. You may not know exactly what it looks like, but you know what the end state is going to be. That you have a course to get to that vision, and you communicate the various steps you're going to take on your journey. They may not be exactly how you outline them, but again, it's that confidence and the trust in your people to make it happen. And then you have to lead by example. That people are watching you on how you're conducting yourself, what you're saying, and we have to lead in a way that we want the folks following us to exemplify that behavior. We have to be able to communicate up the organization. This is where the presence is critical. When you step in front of an executive team with your idea, you have to project confidence. You have to project to them that you know what you're doing, that you're not going to be overwhelmed by the circumstances, and that you have a vision for the future. You have to be able to network strategically. Remember our conversation on networking and the information that Rob Cross provided us about we don't want a huge network, we want a strategic network that we manage carefully. And we have to be able to operate in that network in a way that all of our interactions of those in our network are conducted in a way that it is mutually beneficial. If people get a sense that you're using them, your network's going to start to dissolve very, very quickly. And then we have to practice persuasive language. We have to couch things in the positive. and we have to be an energizing force in the meetings that we come into. Remember our conversation about networking and how Rob Cross said there tends to be two categories of people. There are people that come into a meeting and they're a bright light. They energize the room. People love it when they're there. And then there's people that suck the air out of the room. These are sort of the vampires of energy. You want to be somebody that's the energizer and that you're projecting enthusiasm for a bright future. Another skill that is worthwhile working on is the ability to tell a story. I really love working with a woman named Yvonne Chosen. She's a brilliant individual who worked as a lawyer, as a defense counsel, transitioned into the movie industry, produced films and television shows for a number of years, and now is making her living communicating with executives on their ability to tell a story. And she lays out the fact that storytelling has been a vital part of human existence since we started literally coming out of the caves. She said it's interesting if you go back to the Greeks and you study how they framed the plays and the stories that they brought forward to society. They had a script that looked like this. You have a heroine or a hero, and there's somebody that you're attracted to. All of a sudden, an obstacle appears that complicates that heroine or hero's life. And then another obstacle pops in front of them that now there's a greater burden. And all of a sudden, out of the woods comes another obstacle that makes things really bad. So now you have somebody that you have become attached to, and they have all these burdens that they have to deal with. And then you tell about the struggle that they had wrestling with these demons and the grit and determination that they exhibited, and then you wrap your story up where the heroine or the hero achieves the goal. And humans are conditioned to stories. So when you want to communicate and you want to establish your presence, become a very, very good storyteller. There's also a language of leadership. We're moving you from a passive individual, somebody that checks the boxes or get things done, to somebody that is now starting to motivate people in the direction you want to go. And Elaine has an excellent book that is just full of the language that you can use as a leader in any given situation. But he has a number of points that he starts out his book with. One is leaders speak clearly and they don't over-communicate. Second is they have a broad range of words in their vocabulary, and they move beyond the, yo dude, how you doing, to something a bit more sophisticated. They gain command of the idioms or the slang that's used in the context in which you're operating, and each organization that you're in has its own idioms. So you have to be a continual student where you're studying the organization and their idioms. Some use sports, some use military. In healthcare, the idioms are very much related to caring and nurturing. So again, to be an effective leader, to be an effective manager, use their language. Delegate wherever possible. Really effective leaders that have established their presence in the organization are not afraid to let others carry their mission into the or their message into the organization for them. However, there's some messages that you as the manager, supervisor, or leader are the only one that can communicate. As an example, the strategic end state, what it is you want to accomplish, that's your job. You can't delegate that down. And when it comes to holding people accountable, that's your job. You've done an excellent job. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Or, hey, bucko, suck it up. you're not hitting the mark. That needs to come from you as the leader. Be willing to learn from mistakes. You're going to make mistakes, but a good person that has a strong presence in the organization recognizes them quickly and learns from them. And then back up your ideas. When you're communicating, you're just not philosophizing. Remember our discussion on decision making. Particularly in business, we like to have evidence being provided to us by our leadership. Here are some statistics, here are some studies, here are some best practices that were done by other people. It may sound trivial, but how you dress, how you show up matters. You need to be aware of the appropriate dress for the role that you're going to play in the organization. Many years ago, I worked for a company and had the responsibility of managing accounts across the United States. And at that time, I literally would pack multiple wardrobes. There was a way I dressed when I was doing business in Atlanta. There was a way that I dressed when I did business up in Boston area. There's a way that I dressed when I was in Minneapolis. And I would mirror the appearance of those that I was meeting in the organization, so there was an immediate connection to them and I wasn't seen as an outsider. If you're attached to your appearance, like our friend here on the right, you love your tats, you love your really cool hat, don't try to get a job in banking. It's very, very simple. So again, study the organization, take a look at what's appropriate. And the gentleman up in the upper corner is clearly somebody that's dressing for a position in Silicon Valley. That's the way that they dress. The woman in the lower corner is somebody that's looking for a position within the finance industry or banking or a more conservative situation in an accountancy firm. So study the organization and get over yourself. If you have to do something unique, buy really cool underwear. Where possible, as a leader, to be established within the organization of somebody that's trusted, be transparent and truthful. I love the work of Charles Handy because he's reinvented himself multiple times in his lifetime. But the one common theme of his entire career and all of his writing, he's been very transparent about his bias. He's been very transparent about how he sees the world. And I trust that what he tells me is the truth as how he sees it. Michelle Obama, through her whole time as First Lady, think about, she projected somebody that what you see is what you got. And you could trust that what she said was coming from her heart. You may not agree with Handy's policies, you may not agree with his philosophy, you may not agree with Michelle Obama's philosophy, but you will respect them as somebody that meets the test of being trustworthy and somebody that you'll follow. To wrap up, remember that if you step into a leadership position, no matter what level in the organization, the higher up you go, the greater the magnification that you're going to be studied. And you will be on stage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, both at and away from work. So work on your presence. Come into the organization as somebody that's confident, not arrogant, is willing to work in a very uncomfortable place, but has unbridled passion. Thank you very much.